Florida is a state that was, in a sense, imported. Most of it wasn't so much settled as assembled, swamp drained, sand dredged up and shaped into islands, canals cut in straight lines through country that never had a straight line in it, air conditioning laid over the top like a second sky. It is the great American reinvention machine, a place people move to when they want to start again somewhere warm, and it was built on a simple, seductive promise that almost anything can be shipped in, set down in the sun, and told to grow. The palms along the boulevard came from somewhere else. So did the bougainvillea and the little lizards on the screen porch and half the fish on the reef. Paradise here is a curated thing, a collection, and the collection never stopped arriving. And that is the crack in the whole beautiful arrangement. Because a state built to welcome the exotic with a subtropical climate that refuses to kill anything and a pet trade running through it like a second circulatory system is a state that cannot say no. Everything that ever escaped a cage, slipped off a boat, got flushed down a drain, or got dumped in a canal when it grew too big and too much, it stayed. It bred. It won. Florida now holds more invasive species than any other state in the country. Today we are counting down 11 of them, the ones that have moved in and made themselves at home in the canals and backyards and reefs, ranked not just by the damage they do, but by how completely the state has lost the ability to send them back. By the time we reach number 1, the point will be hard to miss. Almost none of these things snuck in. We opened the door, and now we cannot close it. Before we start, if you like the kind of thing that makes you look twice at a place you thought you understood, take a second to subscribe. It genuinely helps the channel. And while you're here, I want to know one thing. Where are you watching from? Drop your town in the comments. Let's get into the list. Number 11, the Cuban tree frog. We begin with the invader that is probably already inside the walls. The Cuban tree frog arrived in Florida back in the 1920s, most likely as a stowaway in shipping crates and ornamental plants, and it has been quietly spreading through the state ever since. To look at, it is just a frog, warty, pale, bug-eyed, but it grows far larger than anything native, with females reaching up to 6 inches, while Florida's own tree frogs top out around 2.5. That size difference is the whole problem. The Cuban tree frog eats native tree frogs. It eats lizards, small snakes, and other frogs, and in the urban areas where it has settled in, several of Florida's native tree frog species have measurably declined. Its skin oozes a noxious secretion that burns human eyes and mucous membranes and can trigger an asthma attack, which is exactly the kind of surprise you don't want when you open a door at night and one of them leaps at your face. But its real signature is where it chooses to live. Cuban tree frogs climb into vent pipes on the roof and turn up in the toilet. They pack themselves into electrical boxes and transformers, where their bodies bridge the gaps between components, short the circuit, and cause genuine, costly power outages. Number 11 is the invader that doesn't take your yard. It takes your plumbing, your wiring, and the quiet certainty that your own house is entirely yours. Number 10, the giant African land snail. Now to an animal that eats the house itself. The giant African land snail is considered one of the most damaging snails on the planet, and it is exactly as strange as it sounds, a mollusk that grows up to 8 inches long, roughly the size of an adult fist, with a brown shell over half its body. It has now reached Florida 3 separate times. The state has fought it, quarantined for it, and eradicated it before, and it keeps coming back, usually smuggled in as an illegal pet or a delicacy. What makes it a nightmare is its appetite and its arithmetic. It feeds on more than 500 different kinds of plants. When it needs calcium for that giant shell, it will rasp the stucco and plaster right off the side of a building. Its shell is sharp enough to blow out a tire. And it is a hermaphrodite that doesn't need a mate, capable of laying well over 1,000 eggs in a year, which is why a single snail, spotted in a Miramar neighborhood in 2023, was enough to drop a quarantine over the whole area, making it illegal to move soil, plants, or yard waste in or out. Worse, it carries rat lungworm, a parasite that can cause a form of meningitis in humans, which is why the people sent out to gather them wear gloves, and why officials fight them by hand, snail by snail, with bait laid across suburban lawns. Number 10 is the invader that eats your garden, eats your walls, and can put you in the hospital, all at the speed of something you could outrun at a walk. Number 9, the cane toad. Every dog owner in South Florida should know this one by sight. The cane toad, also called the bufo toad or marine toad, is a squat, warty giant that runs 6 to 9 inches long, and it was brought to Florida on purpose, released in the 1930s and the 1940s to eat pests in the sugarcane fields. Today's sprawling population traces mostly to escapes and releases in the 1950s and the 1960s, and it now covers Central and South Florida, roughly everything below the I-4 corridor. The danger is chemical. Behind its eyes sit 2 large glands that secrete bufotoxin, a milky poison the toad releases when it's bitten or mouthed. A curious dog that grabs one can absorb the toxin through its gums in seconds, and without fast treatment, it can die in as little as 15 minutes. The warning signs come quick: drooling, brick-red gums, frantic disorientation, seizures, and the toad is poisonous at every stage of its life, right down to the eggs, so there is no safe version of it to have around. It thrives precisely where people build. New subdivisions with ornamental ponds, outdoor lighting, emshim, and pet food bowls left on the patio are, from a cane toad's point of view, ideal. Every warm, rainy night sends more of them out across the lawns where dogs play. Number 9 is the invasive species that has quietly turned a routine backyard evening into something a family has to watch for. Number 8, the green iguana. Here is the one you've almost certainly seen. Green iguanas were introduced to Florida in the 1960s, arriving through the pet trade and on cargo ships, and they have since become the unofficial mascot of the state's invasion problem. Those big, prehistoric-looking reptiles draped over fences and seawalls all through Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and Palm Beach. Estimates of how many now live in Florida run from around 1 million into the tens of millions. Nobody can truly count them. They are more than scenery. Green iguanas are aggressive burrowers, digging tunnels that can run dozens of feet and undermine sidewalks, foundations, seawalls, and canal banks until the ground gives way. They strip ornamental gardens, foul pool decks and docks, carry salmonella, and have chewed through infrastructure badly enough to cause power outages. And they breed fast, a single female laying dozens of eggs at a time. Their one weakness is the cold, and it produces one of the strangest sights in America. When temperatures drop into the low 40s and below, iguanas seize up, lose their grip, and rain out of the trees, stunned, not dead. In early 2026, a rare hard freeze sent so many crashing down that the state issued an emergency order and more than 5,000 were collected in a matter of days. But a cold snap is a pause, not a solution. Number 8 is the invader so woven into the landscape that its own downfall from the branches has become a local weather event. Number 7. The lionfish. Now the invasion goes underwater, where it is hardest to see and impossible to stop. The lionfish, a striking fan-finned predator native to the Indo-Pacific, was first spotted in the Atlantic off Dania Beach, Florida in 1985, almost certainly a released aquarium pet. From that beginning, it has spread up the eastern seaboard, through the Caribbean, and across the Gulf in what scientists call the first case of a non-native marine fish establishing a self-sustaining population in the region. It is close to a perfect invader. A lionfish carries 18 venomous spines that ward off predators, and in the Atlantic, it has essentially none. Nothing here has learned to eat it. It is a generalist that will swallow anything that fits in its mouth, having been documented preying on more than 70 species, and a single lionfish parked on a reef can cut the number of young native fish there by nearly 80%. And it breeds without pause. A mature female can release tens of thousands of eggs every few days, year-round. Divers and spearfishers now hold tournaments and derbies to pull them off the reefs by hand, and it helps locally, but experts are blunt that full eradication is off the table. The lionfish is out there in numbers and at depths people simply cannot reach. Number 7 is the beautiful thing on the reef that arrived in a fish tank and rewired an entire ocean's food web. Number 6, the old world climbing fern. We're at the halfway point. If you're still with me, you're clearly someone who wants the real picture of what's out there, so if you haven't yet, this is the moment to subscribe, because the invaders from here up are the ones that have moved past nuisance and into the machinery of Florida itself. And here is the one nobody looks at, because it has no teeth. The old world climbing fern is a vine, native to Africa, Asia, and Australia, first found established in Florida in 1965. It doesn't hunt or bite or fall on your car. It climbs. A single leaf can extend more than 100 feet, and the plant knits itself up and over entire tree canopies, weaving a dense green blanket that blots out the sun until everything beneath it dies. From the air, whole tree islands in the Everglades look like they've been draped in cloth. It now covers well over 200,000 acres of South and Central Florida, and it may be the single greatest plant threat to the state's natural areas. It does something almost no animal on this list can do. It changes how the land burns. The vine acts as a fire ladder, carrying flames up into treetops that would normally survive a ground fire, and burning fragments break off and ride the wind to start new fires elsewhere. The only thing that reliably stops it is frost. Remember the expert warning that runs through Florida's whole invasion story, that the plants may be worse than the animals because of how fast they spread and how little anyone understands them. Number 6 is the invader with no face and no menace, quietly smothering the wild heart of the state while everyone watches the snakes. Number 5, the Nile monitor. Back to something with teeth, and most Floridians have no idea it's here. The Nile monitor is the largest lizard in Africa, a powerful semi-aquatic predator that can stretch past 6 feet and weigh close to 20 pounds, and there is a well-established breeding population of them in Cape Coral on Florida's Gulf Coast. They arrived, like so many others, through the pet trade around 1990, and the city has been trapping them for 2 decades, pulling out close to 800 in that time, with the local population estimated to have run over 1,000. This is not an iguana. The Nile monitor is a carnivore that actively hunts. It eats fish, turtles, eggs, birds, and small mammals, runs around 18 miles per hour, climbs and swims well enough to hold its breath for long stretches and travel the canals from one neighborhood to the next. The cruel irony is geographic. Cape Coral is also home to Florida's largest population of burrowing owls, a threatened species that nests in the ground, exactly the kind of prey a Nile monitor is built to find. They also raid the nests of gopher tortoises and sea turtles, both protected. The U.S. Geological Survey calls it the largest and most dangerous non-native lizard established anywhere in the country, and experts have concluded that full eradication is no longer feasible. Residents describe them clacking across the kitchen floor and bolting for the back door. Number 5 is a 6-foot African predator, living in a Florida subdivision that most of the state doesn't even know exists. Number 4, the rhesus macaque. Now the wild card, the one that sounds like a joke until you read the details. There are wild monkeys in Florida, and a good share of them are carrying a virus that can kill you. In the 1930s, a river cruise operator near Silver Springs decided monkeys would make his tours more exciting and released a small group onto what he thought was an island. He did not appear to know that rhesus macaques can swim. They swam. Their descendants have roamed Silver Springs State Park ever since, and the troop today numbers in the hundreds. They are, on the surface, a charming attraction, and that's the trap. Research published through the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention found that roughly a quarter of these macaques carry herpes B, a virus that is usually harmless to the monkeys but can be fatal to humans. During the fall mating season, some of them shed the virus in their saliva, meaning a bite or a scratch from a park monkey is not a nuisance but a potential medical emergency. State records document more than 20 people bitten in and around the park over a stretch of years, and wildlife managers have said plainly that they want the monkeys gone. The problem is that people love them, which has repeatedly stalled removal, even as the population expands into new territory. Number 4 is the invasive species that started as a tourist gimmick, kept its cuteness, and quietly became a public health concern that Florida can't quite bring itself to solve. Number 3, the Argentine black and white tegu. Now the reptile that scientists themselves have flagged as the coming disaster. The Argentine black and white tegu is a large, intelligent South American lizard that reaches nearly 5 feet in length, and it got loose in Florida through the pet trade in the early 2000s. It has since established separate breeding populations across the state: Miami-Dade, Hillsborough, Charlotte, Polk, an emerging pocket in St. Lucie, and now across the line into southern Georgia, with more than 10,000 already captured and documented. What makes it so dangerous is its diet. The tegu is an omnivore that prefers, above almost anything, buried EGGS. Researchers have filmed them walking out of American alligator nests with eggs in their mouths. They dig into turtle nests, disturb the nests of the American crocodile, and have been found with the hatchlings of the threatened gopher tortoise in their stomachs. In a state whose most iconic wildlife lays its eggs in the ground and walks away, an efficient spreading egg predator is close to a worst-case scenario. And unlike many tropical invaders, the tegu can survive freezing winters by going dormant, which means the cold will not stop it from pushing north. The federal government has said, in plain language, that the tegu has a high potential to become the next Burmese python. That comparison is the highest alarm Florida knows how to sound. Number 3 is the invader that hasn't finished arriving yet, the one the experts are watching with real dread. Number 2, the spectacled caiman. Just before the top, an animal most people would swear was a baby alligator. The spectacled caiman is a crocodilian native to Central and South America, named for the bony ridge between its eyes that looks like the bridge of a pair of glasses. It came to Florida the same way the others did, through the exotic pet trade that boomed after native alligators won legal protection in the 1950s. And by the 1970s and 1980s, it was quietly reproducing in the wild. Today, there are breeding populations in Miami-Dade and Broward, and since 2017 alone, more than 340 have been pulled out of managed areas. It rarely grows past 5 feet, which is exactly why it hides so well. In a state where a small dark reptile at the water's edge reads instantly as gator and gets ignored, a whole other crocodilian species can move in without anyone raising an eyebrow. But the caiman shares habitat with native alligators and the endangered American crocodile, competing with both for food and space, and a 2026 University of Florida study labeled it a species of the highest impact concern, warning that it could complicate the largest wetland restoration project in the nation's history as it expands toward Everglades National Park. That's the quiet danger of number 2. Not that it announces itself, but that it doesn't. Florida spent decades assuming every reptile in the canal was a native it already understood. Number 2 is the crocodilian that walked in wearing an alligator's disguise. Number 1, the Burmese python. And so we arrive at number 1, and it can only be the Burmese python, the invasive species that did not just move into Florida, but hollowed out the heart of it. Native to Southeast Asia and imported for years as a pet, the python got its foothold in the Everglades through escapes and releases. A foothold widened in 1992 when Hurricane Andrew tore apart a breeding facility and set an unknown number loose. By 2000, a breeding population was confirmed. There was no putting it back after that. The scale is almost impossible to hold in your head. These snakes reach 18 feet and beyond in Florida, and they are ghosts. Biologists estimate only about 1% are ever seen, which means the tens of thousands removed represent a sliver of what is actually out there in the sawgrass. And what they have done to the Everglades is not damage, it is erasure. In the areas where pythons have been established longest, studies found raccoon populations down more than 99%, opossums down nearly 99%, bobcats down around 87%, and marsh rabbits, cottontails, and foxes effectively gone. An entire layer of native mammal life quietly digested. Florida has thrown everything at it: bounty programs, trained dogs, radio-tagged scout snakes, an annual Python Challenge that in 2025 drew nearly 1,000 people who removed a record 294 snakes in 10 days. And still, every expert says the same thing: eradication is not feasible. The realistic goal is management, holding the line. The state can't even make use of the ones it catches, because the pythons carry so much mercury that health officials have issued a formal advisory not to eat them. Number 1 is the invader that took the wildest, most protected place in the state and emptied it out from the inside. The clearest proof that once Florida's door swings open, some things walk through it and never, ever leave. So here is what this list is really about. Not fear. Florida is still one of the most extraordinary landscapes in the country, worth every airboat ride and every reef dive and every slow evening on the water. It's about the gap between how a paradise is sold and how it actually holds together. Florida built its whole identity on the idea that anything could be brought here, set down in the warmth, and made to belong. The pet trade, the ornamental gardens, the tourist gimmicks, the fish tanks, Every one of these invaders is a thing somebody wanted right up until they didn't. The tree frog is still in the vent pipe. The lionfish is still fanning its spines over a reef that never learned to fear it. The python is still moving through the dead center of the Everglades in numbers no one can count, past the rabbits and raccoons that aren't there anymore. And the state that welcomed all of them is left doing the only thing it can, not winning, just holding on, canal by canal, county by county, against a collection it can no longer send back. Because that was always the deal Florida made without quite reading it. A place warm enough to save anything is a place warm enough to keep everything. And the things we let go didn't leave. They just stopped being ours.